Hello and welcome to Talking Points, our weekly GAA show here on Balls.ie, brought to you in association with Sky Sports GAA. We'll be here every week for the rest of the championship, reacting to the weekend's action. My name is Mark Farley and I'm joined by our editor and a proud Clare man, Mick McCarthy.
That's right, a proud Clare man, Mark. The first time in 9 years I haven't been up the night before the qualifiers draw worrying about who we were going to get. Great feeling. But we'll talk about that a little later on, because we should start with football. The first live game on Sky Sports this summer was Dublin and Carlow in Tullamore on Saturday night. A harder win, I think, than more hard-fought victory for Dublin than I think people were expecting. But unfortunately, the main talking point was Diarmuid Connolly's altercation with the linesman, and that's something that Jim McGuinness was talking about after the game.
If you slow this right down and take a close look at it, he did interfere with the official. What are your thoughts on this?
I suppose, Rachel, in other sports, if you touch an official, it's an automatic red card, and there'll be no questions asked. It's probably not the culture in our own sport, and even the linesman. When you see the linesman, he doesn't really take offence to what has happened there, and that for me is something probably the CCC will look at retrospectively.
Billy McMahon, of course, suspended for one game because of abusive language towards an official. He doesn't look as though he's happy with the official, let's just say. So do you think there will be something off the back of this?
I think the bottom line in that situation is this here, is Diarmuid Connolly should know better. You know, it's not the first time this has happened. It's happening over and over and over. And, you know, you try to give people a break and you try to look on their best side. But the reality is, he shouldn't be getting involved with the linesman. Keep your hand down, stick to task, and just get on with the game. And he's a very fortunate fella there not to be on the sideline.
Mark, 12 weeks is the law. I think it'll be a long time before we know exactly how long Diarmuid Connolly will get for this. He wasn't sent off, though.
Look, the rules are the rules. You can't touch an official. Like, it's just, if it happened in a different sport, if it happened in rugby, there'd be uproar over it. We seem to have this culture, as Jim said, in the GAA, that it's allowed, but that doesn't mean that it should be. And I think that if it is 12 weeks, you're going to have to accept it, because it sets a bad example, and we have to have respect for the officials.
What's he doing as well? It's a line ball. If the official makes a mistake, he's made a mistake. It's hardly the end of the world.
Exactly.
Like, there's no excuse, really.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter if it's Diarmuid Connolly or anyone. If that's the rule, that's the rule. But
yeah.
anyway, I want to, just before we move on, I want to bring you back to the end of that clip, because I noticed this bucko. You can see behind Jim and Rachel. He stood for a good 15 seconds, I'd say, just gawking up at the camera. He was one of my favourite GAA fans of the weekend. You get them every week, just lads. They just get caught in the headlights the minute they see the cameras.
Fine GAA tradition of men and women standing behind interviews and broadcasts and just looking at the camera like it's the most incredible thing they've seen, the second coming of Jesus. I hope it's a tradition that never ends. Yeah,
I'm going to buy the domain buckos.com. It'll just be a gallery of GAA people staring at the camera behind interviews. But anyway, we need to move on. I want to get to our GAA nerd section. We're talking about something I noticed before the Dublin game. Peter Canavan was looking at the Dublin kickouts and how their strategy of moving players from one side of the pitch to the other really helped Stephen Cluxton in creating space, and became a more even salient point at half time, because Carlow struggled an awful lot with their own kickout in the first half, despite the fact they were playing so well. They lost something like 13 out of 23 kickouts throughout the course of the match, and as you can see from Canavan's clip, a lot of that was because they were kicking it long the entire time. Just going back to Dublin men every time.
We look at their 6 defenders, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and they're all moving over to this side of the pitch. And again, it's an easy target for him to hit and Brian Fenton. Likewise, we look at it again, all the Dublin players, Brian, are over at this side of the pitch. Look at the acres of space, there's no one there. Kieran Kilkenny is running into that space, so it's not hard to place the ball into that. And it's up to the midfielders to try and read that, to cut out the space.
Deconstruct, if you will, the problem facing Craig Carney as he decides to kick out.
Yeah, you know, it sounds easy that they're not doing well or they're not doing well. Well, again, let's have a closer look and see the way that Dublin are setting up and the way that Dublin are approaching it. So there's 4 men. Right away, they're committing 4 men on the 20-metre line. So that's making it very difficult for Carlow to play the short. What's happening on the 45? There's 3 men out there. And beyond that, on the halfway line, you see a line of Dublin players. So it's virtually impossible for Kearney to try and find his own teammate. When he kicks it out long, and you take a look again at what's happening out there in terms of the area where the ball's likely to break, and you have 4 or 5 Dublin men converging on the break.
Yeah, great analysis from Canavan there. That's Dublin safely through to yet another Leinster semi-final. There was 3 other football games to talk about though at the weekend. Meath also through to a semi-final. Comfortable enough win in the end against Louth, but they did concede 3 goals, and poor old Paddy O'Rourke, the goalkeeper, didn't have the greatest today. He threw in an absolute howler and gave away a penalty as well. He was on Instagram after the match saying, some days you're the lamppost, some days you're the dog.
Yeah, I suppose the next day he'll be hoping he's the dog rather than the lamppost when they take on Kildare in the Leinster semi-final. Kildare qualified for that with a good win over Laois, 121-17. Cian O'Neill was there before the game, looking very excited. Put your hands up for Selbridge. He loves this city. I don't know if Selbridge is really a city, but a good win for Kildare.
Yeah, Kildare are going really well. They hammered Laois, they're up into Division 1. They've got Meath next, Leinster semi-final on Sky Sports in 2 weeks. It's a pretty exciting game, both teams put up huge scores. But there was one more game at the weekend, up in Ulster, your neck of the woods. Down had their first win over Armagh in, God, how long?
25 years.
25 years, thanks Donny. Long time. But yeah, you were more interested in a certain absent Armagh manager on the day.
Yeah, exactly. Kieran McGuinness was serving his suspension, funny enough, for interacting with the linesman.
Yeah,
but
12 weeks.
It looked like he was watching the match from someone's bedroom window there, with the looks of it. It reminded me of Bart Simpson in the episode where they parodied Rear Window when he was convinced that Matt Flanders had murdered Maud.
Interesting that you chose the parody of Rear Window rather than Jimmy Stewart in Rear Window.
Oh well, look, it looks a lot like McGuinness, to be fair.
So you're saying
more than Jimmy Stewart.
Yeah, that's fair enough actually. Yeah. Okay.
Anyway, we may move on to the hurling. On Sunday, Sky Sports had their first ever Munster hurling match. It was Clare's victory over Limerick. A decent win, but at the same time, there's a lot to work on for Clare. After the match, seems to be puckout, kickout week here on the Talking Point show. After the match, Jamesie O'Connor analysed how Clare need to work on their puckouts.
Andrew Fahey selected, you say, predominantly because of his ability at pucking the ball out, didn't go his way today.
Yeah, well, Clare had 3 goalies in the panel. They gave each one of those guys 2 games during the league, and Andrew Fahey's distribution was outstanding in some of those earlier games. Now, this is early on, and I'm struggling to see what Clare's puck-out strategy is, because Limerick lorded in those opening stages. Again, he's looking to find Tony Kelly here. We're just going to take it back ever so slightly, Brian. Kelly, in space. He's lost Seamus Hickey. But again, the execution just isn't there, and it goes out over the sideline. And we've an even better example here of, that does show what Clare are trying to do. Now they've cleared off, Brian, all this space on this side of the field here, and you'd imagine again that this ball has got to go into this space in front of that attacker. But the execution isn't again what it needs to be. It's too close to the sideline. Conan arguably should have collected it, but it goes out over the line. And the puck out stats are going to be interesting, because Waterford are very, very good in the air, very dominant, on their own puck out. So Clare and Andrew Fahey in particular have work to do.
James, he loves that touchscreen, doesn't he?
He does, yeah.
What did you make of the match? Were you nervous?
I kind of felt that Clare had it in hand most of the game. My concerns would be, as James, you mentioned there, the puck out. He also talked very well after the game about Clare not taking the chances that were there from them, which is kind of interesting considering they scored 3 goals and they struggled for goals so badly last year. There's plenty of positives though, and there's plenty to work on and things that they will get better on. Tony Kelly didn't show up at all. Can't see that ever happening again. Podge Collins was quiet. So there's lots to work on. Clare will get better. They have a Munster final ahead now where, in fairness, given the reaction so far this week, I think people will be writing them off, and I think it's no harm to be like that. It's no harm to be not going in there with your, it all gone to your head a little bit at first Munster final in 9 years.
Exactly, yeah. A win is a win, I suppose.
Yeah.
Actually, anyway, we need to move on to our GAA fan of the week, right? I have a nomination from that match. Okay. It's my favourite Clare fan, Old Crocodile Dundee, except you. Old Crocodile Dundee. A dingo's ate his schlitter and he's not happy. I think you have another nomination for that match though.
I do. There's actually a Limerick fan from the same match who seems to be wearing some kind of upside down mint ice cream on his head. But that's proper commitment to your county. So he's definitely my nomination.
Yeah, for picking a winner though, I want to go back to earlier in the show, the Bucko.
Oh, the Bucko.
The Bucko put in, he put in the work. He didn't need any props. He didn't need a hat or a wig. All he needed to do was stand and gawk at the camera, and I think that was enough for me.
Yeah, it's a proper GAA fan, I have to say. Yeah. On the pitch as well, when he's no business being. Yeah.
Not wasting time looking for selfies.
Absolutely, yeah.
Just trying to get on the television.
Okay, well listen, we're nearly done here, but next week, pretty big hurling game live on Sky Sports next Saturday night, which is Kilkenny going down to a packed and rabid Wexford Park, where David Fitzgerald's Wexford await them. I spoke to Sky Sports co-commentator Nicky English a couple of weeks ago about this game and just how much he's looking forward to it.
Is this the most buzz that you can remember being in Wexford for well over 10 years? Anyway?
Yeah, certainly, yeah. You know, since, I suppose, 2002, really, 2001 kind of time, really, when they got to the Ireland semi-final. And, shortly after that, when they lost to Cork, was it 2004 or 5, they were the end of that team, really, the end of the 96 team. I haven't seen anything like the buzz that's been created. And, it's you have to hand it to Davy Fitz. He's done it in every county and every team that he's been involved with. He gets the whole lot behind him, and there's no better support or fan base than Wexford. Wexford they have certainly improved. There's no question about that. Their physicality is reminiscent of Wexford when I was playing, and my memories of Wexford. They may have had a little bit of an edge in terms of fitness in the league. They were working hard and maybe a little bit earlier than everyone else. So now, when that fitness edge is negated a little bit, it'll be interesting to see how it works out.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you, is how much you think that the league performances were for real, in terms of, like, they're not coming up against anybody here in the Leinster semi-final. It's Kilkenny waiting for it. It's almost Kilkenny waiting in the long grass in the strangest of situations. All the talk is about Wexford. I don't, like, Kilkenny still won't look at Wexford and say this is something we have to really worry about. They'll be probably looking at Galway.
Well, I don't know, because at the end of the day, like, their latest memory of Wexford is a league semi-final where they were well beaten, and only for Owen Murphy they'd have been hammered. In Brian Cody's management career, when they have been beaten by a team, well, then that's when they're very, very dangerous. And he's a traditionalist. He will have been brought up on, played himself. His whole career was huge games between Wexford and Kilkenny going back into the 70s and 80s, and so they'll be absolutely ready for Wexford, I have no doubt, and that league semi-final will make sure that they're even more ready. Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to that. That's next Saturday night on Sky Sports. The coverage starts at 6 o'clock. Wexford Park is going to be thronged, which is what we want to see for hurling games this time of year.
Exactly. If you're down at it, make sure to send us your tweets, your Instagrams, your nominations for GAA Fan of the Week. You'll get featured on the show. But that's pretty much it for us.
Don't forget to gawk into the into the Sky Sports studio at every opportunity.
Give a shout out for us, give us a wave. Well, that's it pretty much for this week. We will be back next Monday reacting to that and all the rest of the GAA's action. Make sure to check out Sky Sports 6 PM for that match on Saturday night. But until then, mind yourself.